Farmers sit in protest in spine-freezing, numbing winter just outside India's capital, New Delhi. The farmers were blockaded at the borders of the national capital so that they don't become a global visual embarrassment, and also not capable of crippling the life in the capital. After 6 rounds of talks with the government, there is no movement forward towards a resolution. The talks have so far failed to mollify farmers who say 3 new agricultural laws threaten their livelihoods. Both sides, the Indian government and the farmers, are not ready to budge from their positions. From the Rail Roko or the train stopping movement to the Delhi Chalo, which means go to Delhi movement, the farmers have shown resolve that they are not willing to back down. The farming communities from Punjab, Haryana, Maharashtra, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh have joined the protests. But many farmers have been speaking for the bill, saying that farmers are protesting against the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and not the Farm Bill itself. The focus of attention is these 3 bills. The Farmers' Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020, the Farmers' Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Empowerment and Protection Act 2020, and the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020. The Indian government says the laws will transform the agriculture sector. The government promises to double farmer income by 2022. The government side of the story says that the laws will make farmers independent of the middlemen control markets. It will help them reap better money for their produce. It will encourage intrastate trade and modernize farming by attracting foreign direct investment. But many farmers are not just apprehensive but are convinced that these laws will destroy their livelihood. Farmers are saying that the new agricultural laws will reduce the responsibility of the government to back them. They will be left to corrupt corporates who will enslave them. The farmers also insist on dropping the Electricity Amendment Bill and say that farmers should continue getting electricity subsidies. The farmers are also demanding that the government must remove provisions on stubble burning. According to law, farmers practicing stubble burning will be imprisoned for 3 years, or they'll have to pay a fine of rupees 3 crores, which is about $500,000. The farmers demand the release of the imprisoned farmers who were sued due to stubble burning. History is proof of what happens to farmers when they become contract farmers and how corporates handle them. The agricultural sector provides 42% of all jobs in the Indian economy and contributes about 15% of the GDP. This protest by the Indian farmers has resulted in many deaths. Some have even committed suicide. One farmer's suicide note to the Indian Prime Minister said to have mercy on the farmers. The Indian government's approach needs to be collaborative. Farmer groups need to be aligned so that what is being envisaged is achieved without causing grief and pain in the journey from the middleman controlled farming to a so-called farmer controlled farming. The journey cannot be like the demonetization or the GST one, where people lost livelihoods and destroyed the economy. Democracy News Live Bureau, New Delhi.
The reality is that when we actually look at the Farm Bill today, and when we look at what the Indian government is saying about the Farm Bill, and what the farmers are saying about the Farm Bill, are entirely 2 different perspectives. They're so far away from each other that one sometimes begins wondering what's really true. So the idea for us to understand is that the farmers are not, at least a lot of them, don't really agree with the Farm Bill and the way it is structured right now. They want the older system to continue functioning. They want to make sure that the new system entirely doesn't take over. So what we have in front of us is a bit of a challenge area. There are about 40 farmer groups who went in to meet the 3 ministers in the government of India. Now, there obviously has not been a complete resolution, but the government of India is saying that 2 of those demands have been resolved. One is the stubble burning, which really puts the farmer into prison and fines them heavily. They're willing to take that back. The other one is the electricity ordinance, which actually increases the price of electricity for the farmer long term. And this is one of the things that the farmers were saying, that you had agreed in the farmer bill, in the electricity bill, that the farmers are going to continue getting this electricity at a much cheaper price. But if you going to begin changing this schematic, then it's going to impact farmers long term, and they didn't want the bill changed. So the government of India, as we are told, has agreed to roll that back. But then the bills, the MSP is still something that the government of India has not agreed. This is the seventh round, which has finished. It is about to finish right now. And so what we are seeing is that even though the government of India is now talking to the farmers, but it's not really reaching a conclusion. On the 26th of January, the farmers are saying that they will carry out a tractor rally to protest. You have to remember, the Indian government is obviously hosting a big event. It's invited the UK Prime Minister to be the chief of guests for the 26th January Republic Day celebrations. So certainly not a great day when Indian farmers would be fighting the Indian government. You have to remember, even in the background, the Indian farmers fought the British very heavily because the zamindari system was, brought in, and the British used to charge heavy taxes on the Indian farmers. So it certainly reminds many a people of what the Indian government is doing today, and it puts them in a very, very bad light. Even 70 years on, the Indian farmer continues to suffer, has poor incomes, and certainly runs a very old traditional agriculture setup. Today, to discuss this, I'm joined by our guests today. We have with us Ramneek Singh. Ramneek Singh he's a political analyst. He's going to tell us a bit about where and how things are unfolding. Also joining us is Mr. Samrat Singh Chauhan. He is the founder of Goplau Farms. Now, what he's going to be, talking about is how, in today's day and age, they've been farming and what are the changes. Also joining us is Chetan Mukund Bhairam. He's a contemporary journalist. He's been working around for 19 years in the business. Also joining us is Rinal Dabas. He's the managing director of Organic Acre. Let me start by Ramneek Singh. Mr. Man, tell me a bit about, as you look at the Farm Bill today, from your perspective, is this a good bill, or what the government is proposing is not right?
Pleasure indeed to be joining you today. See, if you look back since the 1970s, and I'd like you to look at Chaudhry Mahinder Singh Tikait, who has been the flag bearer of Bharatiya Kisan Union, and under whose umbrella all other farm unions and other, unions were mushroomed and they were brought up. These were the very demands that were, being asked and demanded by the farmers since last 50 years. If I may quote Chaudhry Mahinder Singh Tikait, he used to say कि हमारी कनक 6 रुपए की बिकती है और आटा 20 रुपए का, तो ये 14 रुपए की पिसाई कहाँ जाती है? Which literally transforms to our wheat sells at rupees 6 a kg, and the wheat flour, that is atta, is rupees 20 a kg. So where does this 14 rupees go? So in effect, I'll also try and bring you to the reality, the harsh reality, that Punjab farmers used to bring 5 or 6 kgs of wheat on their head, and they used to cross over to Haryana, and they were arrested for smuggling. So there were a lot of things which were not right in the previous system. And also, if you look at the Bharatiya Kisan Union's demand letters and their manifestos all along these years, the latest was in 2019. How I look at it is that this has been something which was demanded all along. It has been granted. This was promised by the Congress Party in its 2019 manifesto. It was promised by 2017 manifesto of Punjab Congress in the English version only, not in the Punjabi version, and by the Aam Aadmi Party in their last manifesto, which when they fought in Punjab in 2017. So these were all the things which were consistently demanded, and now they have been fulfilled. I fail to understand why there is a protest against the farm bills which were being demanded over the last 50 years. And the protests are being intensified when their supplementary demands are being met. So this becomes a little tricky situation. But having said that, see, the farmers are here at the borders of Delhi, and there have been people who've lost their life in the process. So first things first, that we need to remember those people who've lost their lives, and we also need to make sure that today this should be resolved once and for all. Like you said in your opening, there are two demands. The initial demand there were four demands initially, but I should go back to the first round of meeting when there were 37 demands, and then in the first meeting 25 were met. There were 12 remaining demands, and then the government again sat down with the farmers over the course of next four meetings. The demands were reduced to four, which the last time two, which you mentioned, was the electricity amendment bill and then the environment pollution control bill. So the culpability on the farmer in terms of imprisonment as well as in terms of cash fine.
Sure. Sure. Let me, Ramnik, let me bring the others in as well. All right, let me bring in Samrat here. Samrat, when you look at this bill, what is your perspective on it? How do you see this bill?
See, Rohit, I think for everything there are few pros and few cons, and so there are quite a few good things about these three bills, and there are few things which probably government could have done a little differently. But overall, it looks to be a good bill which gives a lot of choices to the farmers. Uh, However, there are few aspects, especially in the bill related to the APMC mandis, farmers produce trade and commerce bill, and also the contract farming bill. So both these bills have few clauses. Things could have been done a little differently. Government could have done things a little more slowly. But nevertheless, having said that, this is the right direction where government is producing, where government is progressing. This is a right direction where our economy and our agriculture should progress. I'm very happy to note. I mean, say the future would something look like this, where a farmer sitting, say in Nainital, would be able to sell his produce online to somebody sitting in say West Bengal or somebody sitting in Bangalore, and somewhere the farmers protesting are kind of obstructing. No, you have to first go through the APMC Mandi and then only you can sell your produce. So that is something which farmers need to understand, and government needs to understand that everything, the existing system has been supporting farmers a lot, though there have been few issues with it, and has to continue for some time at least, and has to be weaned off in a very kind of a, not in a drastic manner, but kind of in a slow manner. So there are good things and bad things which I see about these three bills.
All right. Let me bring in Renal here. Renal, opening statement in terms of when you look at the farmer's perspective on this bill, and then you look at the government's perspective on this bill. How do you view the bill?
certainly Luigi. तो बेसिकली जब से ये प्रोटेस्ट शुरू हुई है देयर आर फोर मेजर पॉइंट्स जो आई कैन कैरेक्टराइज ऑन द फर्स्ट इज द मिनिमम वेज व्हिच इज लाइक इफ वी सी एनी इंडस्ट्री हर जगह पे एक मिनिमम वेज होता है फॉर एन एम्प्लॉय हर स्टेट का अलग होता है सो व्हाई नॉट एग्रीकल्चर सो फर्स्ट इज द प्रोसेस ऑफ एमएसपी then comes the systematically ruining of APMC mandis then comes the contract farming and fourth one the essential commodities act अब इस पे ये समझने की हमें जरूरत है कि व्हाई डू वी नीड एन एमएसपी अब जैसे 2016 इकोनॉमिक सर्वे की रिपोर्ट के अकॉर्डिंग लाइक फार्मिंग फैमिली इनकम इन 17 states was around 20,000 an year which boils down to approximately 1,700 a year so यहाँ पे प्रोटेस्ट इसकी नहीं है कि हमें अब मंडी के बाहर भेजना है वी नीड टू सेल टू अ प्राइवेट प्लेयर और इनसाइड अ मंडी यहाँ प्रोटेस्ट इसलिए है कि वी नीड एन एश्योर्ड इनकम which is, should be backed by a statutory demand. Like I have some statistics. Mr. Modi, our honorable Prime Minister, so when he was chairperson of Consumer Affairs Group in 2012-2013, he did submit the report to then Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh, demanding MSP should be made statutory and the establishment of fast-track courts. And when he is in power, I think उन्होंने कभी इस चीज का जिक्र ही नहीं किया है जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फार्मिंग का डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन है इट स्टिल हैज अ बिग क्वेश्चन मार्क इन इट और स्टैट्यूटरी एंड लाइक व्हाई डू वी नीड अ स्टैट्यूटरी बैकिंग फॉर इट लाइक विलासराव देशमुख गवर्नमेंट ने एमएसपी पे बहुत ही अच्छा एमएसपी तय किया था बट व्हाट एक्चुअली हैपेंड इट वाजंट प्रोक्योर्ड So MSP should have a statutory backing along with the law for procurement centers. So this, like if I see the whole bill, the move is good, but उसमें अगर जो farmers demand कर रहे हैं कि all we need is a statutory backing for minimum support price, whether we can sell outside or in mandis.
Understandable. So I think we've heard this over the last few months when we've done these shows, is that the price that the mandis deliver sometimes may be better. And in the past, they have been better prices. But obviously, there is a challenge. It's run by the adatiyas. These are the middlemen. These are also the people who give money out to the farmers. So they kind of make sure that the farmers only come and sell through them when they actually produce. So that is on one end. On the other end is when we are talking about these corporates coming in, these new corporates which basically have established large chains of selling produce directly to the consumer. Now, these corporates are just coming into play. They will obviously hold a lot of sway. The government of India recognizes it. The farmers recognize it. But what they're worried about is if these corporates are going to begin determining how much they're going to pay for the produce. And that may not be as much as what they make today. So I think there is a clear challenge around that area. They don't want to get enslaved by the corporates, and that's why they're fighting this tooth and nail. Some of them, not all of them, because I don't think there are many states where the government is assuring the people that don't worry about this, we will sort this out. But I don't think there is trust. And when you talked about how the present prime minister did propose that he would resolve the MSP should be statutory and it should be part of the whole protection for the farmer, and he's not implementing it today, there must be a reason around it. You have to remember where the government of India stands. The government of India has a challenge around it. It has a very large farmers bill. There are very large subsidies it hands out to the farmers. And at some stage, the government of India is looking at it and saying, is there a way for us to reduce this expenditure? Can we make the farmers and that whole agricultural setup self-sustaining? The reality also stands that the Indian farmer is not as subsidized as farmers around the world. So there is going to be tremendous competition. And I think that is where a lot of the challenge lies. Ramneek, let me bring you in. As you, I know you have to go away slightly early. In your head, do you think the farmers will back down?
No, looking at the way things have been conducted over the past month and a half, I don't think they're going to budge down because the entire protest has been taken over. If I look at the press conferences being held on the behalf of the farmers, Yogendra Yadav or Darshan Pal or Gurnam Chaduni, these are all political people. I would also want you to look at Rakesh Tikait's interview in Hindustan newspaper on 4th of June 2020, where he has complimented the Prime Minister for bringing in these reforms. He has gone to the extent of saying that his father's soul would rest in peace now, and that the people of India got independence in 1947, and the farmers are now liberated in 2020. So he's gone back on his statements on 4th of June, and he's speaking otherwise now. Well, having said that, though, like you say in Punjabi, ਭੇਡਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਭੇੜੀਏ ਨੂੰ ਅਲੱਗ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ resolution ਆਏਗਾ. You have to separate the sheep from the wolves. Only then you will have a resolution, because there are a lot of vested interests involved in this. I come from
Ramneek, when you say that there are a lot of vested interests, who are you pointing to, and what is your accusation?
See, I'll tell you, you should go back on what Yogendra Yadav, when he was contesting the 2014 election, it was probably the 14th of March, I believe. He said if Narendra Modi becomes the Prime Minister of India, the country will burn. So Darshan Pal, he comes from PDFI, and he belongs to an organization called TUF, which is the Tactical United Front. So they have been involved in a lot of killings in several states. That is, he's a known Maoist. And Gurnam Chaduni, I know he's contested 2 elections. He's won his wife from Lok Sabha Kurukshetra and himself from Ladwa Assembly in Haryana. So they are all politicians. I mean, genuine farmers. Balbir Singh Rajewal has been demanding for a ticket for a long time from Congress. So I have access to his phone records after the 5th of October. I will tell you a very interesting thing. You know, it's never been brought up on television ever. So this is going to be a revolution. The Chief Minister of Punjab is not staying in his official residence in Chandigarh, UT. He stays in his private farm in Siswa. So there is a lot of reason behind that also. And I will name one journalist. She's a Pakistani journalist. I'm sure you've heard of her, Harusa. So there are a lot of things which are going behind the curtain, which people may not be aware of. But the fact remains that yes, there are a lot of vested interests playing behind the curtain. Yes.
So what you're saying, you're making a fairly substantial accusation when you bring up a Pakistani journalist's name and you say she's living
Yeah,
in Punjab.
she's yes, she's living in Punjab. I'll go a step
Is
further
she the
now.
one running
No,
this?
no,
Is she the one kind of influencing
Rohitji,
this?
Rohitji, she's been involved in even. See, I'll tell you, there is a lot of bureaucracy in Punjab. There are a lot of bureaucrats in Punjab who walk up to her for their transfers and posting and favorable appointments. This is a known fact in Punjab. You can ask anybody. So, आप ना ये भी एक बार you should dig deep into it as to why Chief Minister of Punjab is not staying in his official residence. See, Chandigarh is a union territory and law and order is a state subject. So Arusa cannot stay inside this Chandigarh duty and do what she does, while she has all the independence of working and playing around in whatever way she want to in Siswa farm in Punjab. You look at the phone call details. Look at where the Punjab Chief Minister is staying over the past 6 months.
No, but
And
is this an
I also want
accusation that
to bring your
the Punjab CM, what you're making an accusation? You're saying the Punjab CM is being anti-national. He's playing in the hands of Pakistan, and he's not playing for the farmers. Is that what you're saying?
You should go back to the date. The date is 5th October 2020, when Mr. Rahul Gandhi was riding on a sofa tractor. The tractor was driven by Sunil Jakhar. On his left was Captain Amrinder Singh. तो इस सब चीज़ों की नींव उसी दिन रखी गई थी और जो आप देख रहे हैं प्रोटेस्ट इट्स अ फुल ब्रोन स्वरूप है उसका जो नींव पत्थर रख के आए थे उस दिन राहुल जी एंड you should, as a journalist, try and dig deeper into it and find out as to why exactly the chief minister not staying in his official residence and living in his private farm at Siswa. There are many reasons behind it. The reasons are better known to people who are, let's say, who are in touch with the regular affairs of Punjab. You may not be aware of it, but yes, there are many who are still aware of it.
So I think let's go back to the others as we discuss this. So there's an accusation that he's making that the Chief Minister of Punjab is playing, Ramneek is saying, is basically not playing ball. This is more of a strategy to bring Modi down. And again, we talked about it in the beginning as well, that this is a protest against Modi and not the farm law itself. But at the same time, there are many who certainly believe that this farm bill is anti-farmers. But there are many, obviously, who are standing with the farm bill today. One of the biggest changes that has happened from when the protests began to where we are today is there are many farmers who are now standing with the bill. They're saying this bill is in our long-term interests. Renal, do you want to weigh in and talk a bit about, what Ramneek was talking about, that this is an anti-national move to, basically bring the present government and show the present government in poor light more than anything?
So basically, I fail to understand. अब जैसे रोहित जी देखिए पिछले 5 साल में जितनी भी प्रोटेस्ट हुई हैं चाहे जेएनयू का हो चाहे हमारा कोई भी दिल्ली का कोई इशू हो चाहे फार्मर प्रोटेस्ट हो हर एक को किसी को एंटी नेशनल के साथ जोड़ दिया जाता है जो कि अकॉर्डिंग टू मी ठीक नहीं है यहाँ पे अगर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट कर रही है तो उसका मुझे एक रीजन जरूर ये लग रहा है कि अगर फार्मर्स मंडी में नहीं आएंगे मंडी में 2% स्टेट टैक्स लगता है तो वहां से कहीं ना कहीं स्टेट का रेवेन्यू कम हो जाएगा एंड व्हेन आई से कि सिस्टमैटिकली मंडी को रूइन एपीएमसी को रूइन करने की एक मूव है लाइक ओवर द लॉन्ग टर्म अगर आप मंडी के अंदर टैक्स लग रहा है और बाहर टैक्स नहीं लग रहा है ऑब्वियसली द प्राइवेट प्लेयर विल कम एंड वी हैव सीन इन द टेलीकॉम सेक्टर वी हैव सीन इन द हेल्थ केयर सेक्टर वी हैव सीन इन द केस ऑफ जियो starting में आए थे they did distribute the free SIM card and eventually they were able to monopolize the whole telecom sector and in turn monopolize the rates. The fight here is कि फाइन आप हमें बाहर बेचने दीजिए बट द अश्योर्ड इनकम क्या प्राइवेट प्लेयर में उस रेट पे देगा या नहीं देगा That's the biggest question.
I think we've lost Mrinal there. Samrat, do you want to weigh in into what Ramneek was talking about? And do you want to talk about a bit about if this protest is absolutely bunkum? It's not really for the farmer at all.
So I would say that it's a completely politically motivated protest. There are few aspects about the bill which Mrinal was talking about, like the tax that is there in the APMC mandis, and there's not no level playing field being created for the private markets and the APMC mandis. So in a way, yes, there is a intention of kind of doing away with these APMC mandis, and probably the MSP also. And that probably in the long term may still be good, but has to be done in a very, very slow manner where the farmer gets confident, where the farmer gets comfortable in dealing with the corporates, in dealing with the private sector. Again, there are a few dispute resolution aspects in the contract farming bill where the court is being kept out of the whole dispute resolution mechanism. So that again tells the government wants to keep everything under its own control and wants to keep the courts out. Having said that, I would say overall there are a lot more positive aspects about these three bills, which will bring in private investment, which will bring in private players. Government has done lot of protection kind of clauses have also been added in the three bills, but then there are few aspects where government has not kind of consulted the farmer unions before kind of rolling out these bills, and which government could consider now. However, the farmer brothers, they are not really talking about these clauses. They are talking about rolling back the bill, which to me is not justified. They're uh, probably the 16.6% or say overall 14% farmers who are dealing through APMC mandis are kind of in a way speaking for 100% farmers who wants to have an open market. So there are multiple aspects about these bills.
Okay. Mrinal, you were saying something where I know you got cut off there. I think it was your network. Do you want to weigh in and basically talk about what you feel in when we talk about farmer protests, and if at all this protest is useless in many ways, as many are describing?
Yeah. So basically, जो farmers हैं, like एक अभी बात उठती है कि why सिर्फ पंजाब और हरियाणा के किसान ही की प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं? Why are not the farmers of whole India are protesting? The reason is कि जो MSP है, like it's a very important issue. 90%, and it's not my statistics, it's 2018 economic survey statistics. 90% of wheat and rice procurement is done from farmers of Punjab and Haryana. इसीलिए farmers protest कर रहे हैं. And when we say कि यहाँ के सारे farmers they are quite rich, quite affluent, तो उस केस में like again the economic survey 70% of the small and marginal farmers के पास it's less than 1 hectare of land. So first of all it nullifies कि आप सिर्फ अमीर फार्मर्स के लिए बात कर रहे हो. और जो आई थिंक सम्राट जी ने कहा कि आप इंटरनेट पे कहीं पे भी बेच सकते हैं, सो दैट वाज व्हाट एग्जैक्टली वाज इनैम वाज. जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक नैम का हमारा कॉन्सेप्ट आया था वो एग्जैक्टली यही चीज थी कि ऑनलाइन आप कहीं से भी उस पर ट्रांजेक्शन कर सकते हो, फार्मर्स को दिख जाएगा. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ स्ट्रेंथनिंग एपीएमसी मंडीज जहां पे कहीं ना कहीं स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को भी, विच बाय द वे एग्रीकल्चर इज अ स्टेट सब्जेक्ट जिसमें सेंटर को शायद इंटरफेयर नहीं करना चाहिए था, बट सिंस दे हैव डन, और सम्राट जी ने ऐसे कहा कि जो फार्मर यूनियन है उनकी पहले बात नहीं सुनी गई, ये कहीं ना कहीं गवर्नमेंट को डेफिनेटली करना चाहिए था. एंड हैविंग सेड दैट 2014 बीजेपी मैनिफेस्टो, एंड आई थिंक रमनीक सर मुझसे एग्री करेंगे, 2014 बीजेपी मैनिफेस्टो में the government came to power riding on the farmers like the support, और उसमें था कि स्वामीनाथन कमीशन की रिपोर्ट को हम एमएसपी में लागू करेंगे जिसमें कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन प्लस 50% पे एमएसपी तय होगा, जो कि ओवर द इयर्स आई रियली डोंट थिंक वो फुलफिल हुआ है. रोहित जी.
Perfect. No, you know, I think the whole challenge around farmer protests, around what the MSP stands for, why the farmers of Punjab and Haryana are the only ones protesting. I think there are a lot of things that have been said which kind of make it clear there's a reason for the farmers of Punjab and Haryana to protest. Also, this accusation by a lot of people around these are rich farmers, they're not the average farmers. I think it's a bit shallow. The reality is, as Ronald pointed out, 70% of the farmers have under 1 hectare of land. I don't know if people understand what a 1 hectare is. It's a few acres of land. If that's the average landholding size, then you're not looking at some very rich farmers. You don't make a tremendous amount of money. An acre of land will give you maybe a few thousand kilograms of grains a year, which is, if sold at 16, 17, 20, 25 rupees a kilo, is not a tremendous amount of money. So calling a farmer a rich farmer who's out to make money and is using these subsidies is a very narrow way of looking at it. I think there needs to be a more balanced approach to this. Also, on the government side, I think looking and becoming so harsh and wanting to bring about changes so rapidly may just not be a great idea. There needs to be a sit down discussion. There needs to be a 10-year strategy in terms of this is how we will roll. Every year we will do this one step forward. And I think that's where some of the changes will come. We're going to be looking at these farmers are a very large part of our community. 60% of people live in rural India. 42% of all jobs are created by farming. So no need of a immediate turmoil like the demonetization or even the GST. I think there is a better way of approaching this, and collaboration and consultation is certainly a democratic way of dealing with it. So thank you for joining us for It Matters, and we certainly stand with making sure that the farmers get their due. They're very much a part of our system. They're not anti-national. They're not some terrorist group, that they need to be treated like one, and there certainly needs to be no statement around that idea. Thanks for watching. Good night and good luck.